incentives. We know what the players are. The players are doing stupid things. The rules we know, okay? But the incentives is something that we have to think about. Why is it being like this? And the answer is because they're not interested in sex or procreation. What they're interested in is status. Okay, that's the game they're playing, status. I don't want to marry someone to have children. I would marry someone so I can take a picture of her and post it on Instagram so I can get a lot of likes. I want to marry someone so I can walk with her in the mall and all the guys are jealous. Not a game about sex or procreation. You understand? You're not being rational here. People are trying to maximize their status in life. And that's why everyone's behaving like this. Remember, she may be the oldest woman in the world, but she's still like, you know what? It's still my choice whether to have kids. Having kids is a pain in the ass. So if I'm going to make the sacrifice, this guy better be good looking. Okay, or this guy better be rich. Otherwise, why would I have kids? Okay? So, this is why people behave the way they do. And if you think about it this way, what you recognize is that people are rational. But to understand why they're rational, you have to figure out what the game is. Okay? But then this leads to us to a question, which is, okay, well, clearly this is wrong because if we behave like this from human history, we wouldn't be here today.
In the west of the country,
how is it that we have this game today, and we're going to die? So we must have come from somewhere. We've been around for a long time. So how is it that humans have survived for so long? Doing these traditions, and the answer is, because the game changes over time according to the superstructure of society. Okay, the superstructure. The superstructure is what determines the nature of the game. Superstructure, just think about the big picture, right? How many people are there? Is society wealthy or poor? Are there enemies to this society? Okay, this is the superstructure, the big picture, demographics, economics, culture, politics, religion. And these things together is what determines the nature of the game. Alright, so let's look at 3 examples of superstructure. Alright. Example 1 is you have a low population society. Okay, low population is like maybe 200 people, okay? A village, basically. They are poor and low technology. Low technology means they don't have access to clean water. They don't know what hiding is. They don't understand what germs are. So it's very easy for a woman to die in childbirth. Okay? And low competition. Low competition just means that there are no competing villages against them. Okay, so that's one kind of superstructure. The early superstructure of human society, okay? Then you have maybe growing population. Okay? So maybe we're talking like 20,000 people. They are now growing well. They have some technology, meaning they have access to clean water, and they have high competition. Okay? Meaning that they're competing against different villages and societies around them. Okay, that's another superstructure. Now, the third superstructure is overpopulation, okay, which is where we live in today, okay? Where in China, 1 billion people. That's a lot of people. Too much wealth. Okay? So we're world of inequality, right? And then you have high technology. This high technology just means that every woman who gives birth will not die. And every child born will live, okay? And then you have something called equilibrium. Equilibrium just means that, yeah, there's competition.
Oh my god.
War against each other.
They're gonna invade, continue to blow it up. It's crazy.
the game is going to change.
It's
So
terrifying.
let's go back to the game. Okay, we have 10 people. Okay? And a low. Alright. Example one is you have a structure. And these things together is what determines the nature of the game. Alright, so let's look at 3 examples of superstructure. It's easy for a woman to die in childbirth. Okay? And low competition. Low competition just means that there are no competing villages against them. Okay, so that's one kind of superstructure. The early superstructure of human society, okay? Then you have maybe growing population, okay? So maybe, we're talking about maybe 10,000 people, 20,000 people. They are now growing well, they have some technology, meaning they have access to clean water, and they have high competition, okay? Meaning that they're competing against different villages and societies around them. Okay, that's another superstructure. Now, the third superstructure is overpopulation, okay, which is where we live in today, okay? Where in China you have 1 billion people. That's a lot of people. Too much law. Okay? So we're working inequality, right? And then you have high technology. This high technology just means that every woman who gives birth will not die. And every child born will live will live, okay? And then you have something called equilibrium. Equilibrium just means that, yeah, there's competition, but they're not like going to war against each other. The world is basically peaceful.
Super rationality.
And according to superstructure, the game is going to change. So let's go back to the game. Okay, we have 10 people. In a low population poor society, guess what? They're not going to date. What they're going to do is they might get married, but they're going to have sex with each other. Why? Because as a woman, the only way you ensure that your child survives is if all the men in the village want to protect and nurture the child. They'll do that if they believe that the child could be theirs, okay? So the woman will maybe have a husband, but the woman will also choose to sleep with other men to disguise paternity. Does that make sense? So there's no dating, there's just lots and lots of sex in order to maintain social cohesion, okay? Now, in a superstructure number 2, there's no dating either. Why? Because this society is in competition with other societies, and they need to have as many children as possible. So what the solution here is to arrange marriages. Arranged marriages. Where, you know, who cares who you marry? Just have lots and lots of kids, okay? There's no dating either. Just have lots and lots of kids. You marry who your parents tell you to marry. You marry someone that you know. You marry your childhood best friend. Who cares, okay? But you marry someone, you have lots and lots of kids. Okay? That's superstructure number 2. Superstructure number 3 is the one we live in. And here, you have a dating game. Right? Why? Because the odds of you being savage is really, really low. Okay? And the only way that you can change your status is by marrying up. And that's why you have a dating game. A dating game is an opportunity for you to find someone better than your social demographic circumstance can suggest. Okay? And that's why you have low, decreasing fertility rate. Okay, where over time, in the dating game, society will collapse. Okay, does that make sense? All right. So, now in the government, and all over the world, women who are wealthy, well-educated, are refusing to have children, especially in East Asia. Right now, the fertility rate is in China is about 1. Okay? About 1. The replacement rate that you need is a 2.1. So just to maintain your current population levels, every woman in China needs to give birth to at least 2 kids. But right now, on average, we're trying to have 1 kid only in China. And the worst thing is that this trend is increasing. So 5 years ago, the fertility rate was maybe 1.7. Now it's 1. Okay, so the trend is very, very negative. Okay? So governments all around the world are trying to figure out what to do. How do you convince women to have more kids? And what we've discovered is it's impossible. We can pay you more money, like you do in South Korea. Guess what it is? People don't want money, they want status. And status is a zero-sum game. Okay? Money is infinite, but status, how, is a zero-sum game. So we have overpopulation, we have too many people competing for too few status positions. You have decreasing fertility rate. And there's nothing you can do about it. The moment you give women choice, they choose
Look at
to
this.
improve their lives by marrying someone better. Okay? Now all of them work. And so over time, what happens
Look at that. 11% today. I'll take that.
we look at history, the best indicator that a society is what the class is if the women who are wealthy and well-educated, if they refuse to have children. This is what happened to the Romans, who collapsed. This is what happened to many empires. This is what's happening around the world today, in America, in Britain, in Europe, in China. Okay? And this tells us that society is collapsing. So in other words, what this really is, okay, these superstructures, it tells us the life cycle of civilization, right? So this is when civilization is young, then it matures, it grows, and then it collapses. Okay? And if you look at history, all civilizations go through this process of birth, maturation, and then collapse. And there's no way around it. So the hard game theory is that just by studying one aspect, okay, if I just study this game, alright, I figure out who the players are, the role, and the incentive, I figure out what the superstructure of the civilization is, okay? And then once I have these two, I can now figure out where it came from and where it's going. Okay? That's what I want to teach you in this class. How to analyze the situation so you understand the players, the rules and incentives, which will give you insight into the superstructure so that you can figure out where it came from and then you can also predict where it's going. Alright? So, but you also use the superstructure to figure out what the game is being played. So this is what many different examples of game theory. Is this clear so far? Any questions? Any comments, any questions before I move on? Alright. Alright, so let's just look at some basic facts. Okay. Alright, this is a map of the world, okay? As you can see, okay, so the color scheme is this. The red is where the population, the society has an above replacement fertility rate, okay, so above 2.1. It's dark red, like here in the middle of Africa, it's 6 to 7, or 6 above, okay? And why is that the case? Because Africa is in a situation where it's a growing society with middling tech, so a lot of people die, lots of competition, So to survive, families have to give birth to a lot of kids, okay? There's no choice in the matter. But then you move to the rest of the world, okay? So this is North America, Europe, and East Asia, the three wealthiest parts of the world. And guess what? The fertility rate is collapsing because now we've entered the end game, where it is overpopulation, too much wealth, so too much inequality, and so women are forced to take the best possible mate or not have children at all. Alright? And here the situation is very, very dire. North America and Europe are kind of okay. Why? Because of immigration. Because even though their women are not having children, they can choose to import people for their labor force. But East Asia is really, really screwed, guys. Okay? So just look at this region. Okay. So China is one, but the worst is North Korea. Sorry, South Korea. South Korea has the lowest population rate the lowest fertility rate in the world. They're at between 0.6 to 0.8. So they're probably gone in 50 years' time. It's so bad that when you go to South Korea, there's signs outside restaurants that says no dogs and no kids. They think that kids are a problem. Okay? So you look at these areas, again, they are poorer, so women are forced to have more children in order to survive. Okay? But you look at the wealthy areas, well, they'll be gone in 100 years' time. Okay? It's total collapse. The solution that women are choosing right now is to import immigrants. Okay? Especially, so these are the trends right now. And it's causing a lot of destruction in society because, guess what, guys? People don't like outsiders. People don't like immigrants. But they don't have a choice in the matter because, along with the fertility crisis, is the aging crisis where your population is getting older and older. Okay? So, life, the world is not as simple. If you want to know who will rule the world in 100 years' time, just remember which society do wealthy, well-educated women choose to have children, and then that society will rule the world. Okay? It's not simple, right? Well, unfortunately, if you do it that way, you get a really, really disturbing answer. Okay? So this is per capita GDP, okay? So how much do people make? Alright, so obviously, if you're zero, you're very poor, and if you move to over here, you're very wealthy. Okay, so the United States is the wealthiest society in the world, right? Sure, we can understand that. Then this is the fertility rate, which tells us how many children women have on average. Okay, so again, 2.1 is replacement rate. Okay, 2.1 is replacement rate. The United States is actually below replacement rate, but the United States doesn't really care because they can import immigrants. Okay, China is probably around here somewhere. Okay. Angola is up here, but it's poor. So what this map tells us is a country that is most likely to be dominant next to the years is this one. Israel. Okay. It is the only wealthy, Western, high-tech society in which women choose to have more than 2 kids. Okay, this is what game theory teaches us. And yeah, I know there are people like, yeah, but Israel it has 9 million people. And in the middle of the desert. And everyone hates Israel. I understand that. Thank you very much, okay? I understand that.
Doesn't matter.
But you just analyze how the game works. Okay? If you just look at it objectively, from a game theory perspective, you are forced to conclude that Israel right now has the major advantage over everyone else. Now, it is possible that studies will change the fertility rate as the world changes, okay? But I'm saying that given the current state of things, Israel, their growth trajectory is very, very high. But then the question then is, okay, why is it that Israel, they are different from everyone else? And the answer is because the world hates them. Okay? Because they think they are different from everyone else, and they must unite together to survive. So in Israel, fertility is status. Okay? If you are a woman and you give birth to a lot of kids, that means that you love Israel. That means that you are doing what you can in war for survival. It means you're a patriot. Okay? But this has to do with religion. So, what the West has done is not only has it created a dating game where women can choose to have kids, but the Western world has also given up on religion and embraced materialism. Right? So, what is valued in our world, in the West, it's not patriotism or love of family or religious duty, it's just how many Instagram followers you have. It's how many YouTube subscribers you have. It's how much money you have. Okay, that's all that matters. So, given the current state of events, it's very hard for the Western world and really for China to survive for the next 50 years. Okay? I know, like, we're trying to build people, so even though you know, we're only giving birth to 10 million kids a year, we're still around for a long, long time, okay? So at this rate, by 2100, China will be a population of about 600 million.
Like 135 million people born a year and 67 million deaths.
Here's the problem, though. Okay, this is South Korea. Okay, South Korea is like the worst case scenario. And for South Korea, this is actually the best case scenario where...
Yeah, and then it was around like 67 million deaths a year.
You saying China only does 10 million?
You'll have a situation like this where the vast majority of people are over 65 and you have no kids, okay? That is a zombie society where no one works and everyone just, I don't know, walks around the park every day. No one works, so the economy has collapsed. Okay, so look at this trend where we are now in here, okay, where the majority is still a working population, which is good, you need that for the economy, but by the time you hit 2040, okay, you got this huge dependency on a creating population, okay? You guys see this? Where we are? In, okay, so we're at 2020, right? Okay, all right, so it's still not too bad, but by the time you hit 2040, look at this. Okay, look at this. Now, look at this, where you have absolutely no kids, and then you have lots and lots of retirees. Okay? And then, by the time you hit 2060, oh my God. Right? Your population, your working population has decreased by half, by 50%. Alright? So, if things stay the same, if nothing happens, South Korea will be dead in, I don't know, by 2150, okay? Best case scenario. But what we know from history is that society's not dying naturally. Eventually, South Korea will be forced into wars, economic crises. So this trend will just increase. And so, if North Korea got past 2080, I'd be very surprised. Okay? I'd be surprised by 2040, South Korea were to face collapse as a nation state. Okay? Because you need these people to work, but guess what? You also need them to fight wars. So if North Korea ever threatens South Korea, most of your adult population will be dead. Okay? So South Korea cannot fight a war now. The prospects of South Korea is ugly.
Yeah, but this is the first time around, though. The second time will get more risky.
Because South Korea
Tim Cook ball
and
Nike
Nike
style.
style.
where
It's gotta be around
the only way to get ahead is by making a lot of money, okay? And if you're a middle-class person in South Korea, it makes no sense for you to have 3 kids. It makes sense for you to have 1 kid and put all your resources into this 1 kid in the hopes that he passes the college examination, gets into a good university, and then gets a good job at Samsung, which is the only company in South Korea, okay? Samsung. Right, so the situation is pretty dire in...
So Samsung's the only company.
Okay, that's it for today. Any questions, guys, about what we've learned? Okay.
There's no 5 minutes left. Got some questions.
So for the last graph that we talked about Israel, and I've noticed that the Saudi Arabia that is also like not bad GDP per capita and fertility rate. So, but for Saudi Arabia, maybe I'm wrong. Like stereotypically that they didn't receive much hate as Israel did. So why did they like at the similar position as Israel?
Okay. That's actually a really good question, okay? Alright. So, Saudi Arabia, as you can see from this map, it's a very wealthy society, and families have about 4%. Alright, so Saudi Arabia is actually an outlier. The reason why is that it gets all the money from oil revenues, okay? So it sells oil around the world. What does it do? It's a welfare state using this oil. So you're incentivized to have many children as possible because the government will pay for it. Free schooling, free healthcare, free housing, and then a guaranteed job. So it's basically like socialism. It's also a Muslim country, so you have this religious duty imperative to have as many children as possible. Okay? But the problem with Saudi Arabia is they get human capital, where it is not really a modern society in which people are well educated and they're contributing to the economy, okay? Saudi Arabia just gets all the money from oil, and that's it. It's trying to grow terrorism, it's trying to develop its human capital, but it doesn't really work, okay? So you're right in that Saudi Arabia, it seems to be doing well, but it's not really, okay? But also, like, people will argue about Israel as well. We're like, well, Israel gets all the money from the United States, and it's the American military that supports Israel. That's true to a certain extent, but I would argue that if you actually go to Israel, you will see that it's an open, dynamic society in which you're allowed to ask questions, in which you're allowed to criticize the government, in which you are given a lot of opportunities for social mobility, okay? So Israel has democracy, it has innovation, okay? It has technology, okay? And Saudi Arabia doesn't have these things. If you want to be a really strong nation, then you need innovation, you need openness, you need knowledge, okay? It's also really highly educated, right? Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so Saudi Arabia is really an outlier here. All right, but the problem is what happens if Saudi Arabia runs out of oil, right? Well, there's a war in the Middle East, and Saudi Arabia is kind of screwed. All right. All right. But you can also argue, no, well, Saudi Arabia, it has a lot of money, and maybe, okay, so game theory doesn't give us the answers. Game theory, it just gives us a guide to ask questions and do research. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah.
I have a question about like when is this data? It's rose about 2009, right? So how about now? Did it change a lot, or like is there anything changed?
Okay, yeah. So you asked about the sourcing of the data, okay? And you're right in that there'll be fluctuation, okay? But but this is 2024, okay? 2024, and this is Israel right here, okay? All right. So if it's red, it's a bump replacement. All right, and if you just Google Israel population fertility rate.
Yeah, this was the land bank
Nation in the
coming
world
there.
that has an above replacement fertility rate. Okay. All right. Okay. Any more questions, guys? All right, great. So I will see you guys next time.
Code D. Yeah, Professor Chang. Nice.
Jesse, thank you so much for doing this.
It is a pleasure to be here, Ethan. Good to see you.
Let's start with the big question. How do the big multi-manager hedge funds, namely Citadel, Point72, Balyasny, and Millennium, how do they hire the best talent possible? What does that process look like?
First word that comes to mind is rigorous.
This is the Jim Simons book.
Obviously, the
Yeah.
name alone
Trying to see the other ones.
Carries a lot of weight, right? And the way the industry kind of fluctuates and ebbs and flows, sometimes the name carries more weight than at other times, right? I think right now, from our vantage point, sometimes these big names might be losing out to talent in AI or startups and what have you, right? But to answer your question more directly, how are they attracting talent? They offer the best of the best platforms in all of financial services, and they offer the platform of the smartest, right? And I think for us, from our perspective, that's one of the elements that makes them stand out the most. Still, at this day and age, the multi-strat hedge fund industry is largely populated by the capital allocated by those four names that you just mentioned, right? So they sell themselves because
Let me against your best and favorite capital allocator. I'll outperform him.
traditionally
Easily.
works, right? There are
Wouldn't even think about it as a competition with them.
huge opportunities to own and take risk, and to be on a desk or a pod that owns and takes a lot of risk, whether you're supporting that desk and pod or you're owning it yourself as the decision maker or revenue generator. So I guess that's my long-winded way of saying the way that these organizations, the way that those
Business lady.
organizations primarily sell themselves is their name.
Jabs back at it. Let's go. We just closed down that website.
And
They're back at it.
attract the smartest and the most talented for that reason.
Absolutely.
And
From the UK. From the ends.
I'm laughing
You
right now
lot.
in my head because whenever I watch Ken Griffin talk, right, and he's there and he's in front of a lot of students, and he loves to do these. I remember a quick side story, but he gave a talk at LSE, and it was in the UK, and it was only for LSE students. I went to UCL and actually snuck into the talk just so I could watch him in person because I was curious, right? And
Fanboy. He is a little fanboy.
every single talk is that at Citadel, they hire the highest caliber of people possible. And he says that very often he says, we're a research firm first, trading is how we execute that, and talent is how we implement, or talent is how we come up with the exceptional research that we produce. And I think that at all the multi-manager shops, they run this, I want to call it sort of a talent strategy, where they get the best and brightest, they bring them in, and they have them contribute. And we're seeing recently plenty of articles on the talent war that's happening. Whenever I talk to people in the industry, they say it over and over and over again. And I guess I want to hear some background. How did that come about? And what incentives led to that war, the talent war that's happening today?
So, I think it's no secret, right, that those
Putting
talent
forward.
wars, or that talent platform is based in, for lack of a better term, the top 10 mentality, right? These types of firms only are looking
Might be
for
time to buy
top
1,000 shares.
research
See what's
universities,
going
top
on
10
with it.
research programs, top 10 PhD programs in the U.S. and globally, right? So they're not exclusive in that way, but it's a general principle that they're looking for best and brightest on paper as far as the diploma is concerned, right? I think additionally,
That's code for go to an Ivy League.
Go
Go
something
to
that
an
we've seen
M7 school.
over the last few years as well, especially, was, and I think, if I remember correctly, I think I first heard this from a client, but I think the phrase was, hedge funds used to hire if you were on, for
Yeah, I
example,
don't like
if you
this.
were on the Google Maps
Shit
feed,
either.
or if you were on the highest performing rates trading desk at Goldman Sachs. Now, the bar has been raised so much that they want the individual who invented Google Maps, right? Or the person who is now spearheading the next generation of Google Maps, or they want the head of the rates trading desk, right? I think that's the difference. That's the direction.
You just got restricted units though.
To your earlier point, right? That we're in a bit of a different generation, even though it's a couple of years. That talent bar is so much higher and it's so much more competitive now because these funds are in such a privileged position to be able to work exclusively with, again, that best and brightest.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we were talking on the right before this call, before we started recording, and you mentioned how much Al-Yazni spends on recruiting. I think it was $280 million. Am I correct?
It is. I actually just read that recently.
How did that come about? Like, how did the budget for the bench expand so dramatically? And how is it 280 million on a single firm?
Said that he read it to show that he didn't get inside information.
I think if you use the recent information that a fund like Balyasny is spending $280 million, right? But just without getting into the specifics of numbers, if you just use the fact that these funds are spending a lot on talent, what's the incentive?
Try something.
I think there are a couple ways that I would think
Do
about
it
this.
for the market and on top of this is just gonna flatline and kind of doesn't worry.
And another is from a competitor perspective, and the third is just generally, as the way the way of the world.
Oh, that's scary.
If you liken it to sports, right? I actually read an article about this earlier this year that portfolio managers are signing contracts like athletes, right? Speaking of Balyasny, right? I believe they just brought someone on for an $80 million contract, right? That's like a 4-year deal in the major leagues, But at the same time, $80 million contracts weren't happening 10 years ago, or an $80 million contract, depending on the skill in sports, might be small compared to what it is now, right? So there's just so much more money. These funds are so acutely focused on alpha generation, whether it's systematic approaches and advancing systematic approaches to utilizing data science and AI, again, to find that smallest arbitrage, right? Again, referencing the pod model, right? They're hedge funds. So the pod model creates a way for them to work off of each other and balance each other, but also generate profits in an additional way. So I think they're largely boosted by technology, which has just kind of shifted this approach where they're making so much more money hand over fist that they can afford these, this talent.
I've been in there.
Point. The candidates at this point in the cycle have a little bit more power than they had previously, right? There's the
Sold
Asian
Target
market
too early.
base,
I don't know why I sold it at all. Buying it at like 80.
wanting to have your name at the same place for 10, 15, 20 plus years, and just kind of owning your pod, owning your portfolio forever. And just a natural shift in the cycle has been the fact that actually the candidates, the traders themselves, have realized from their drawdowns, right? If they're not making any money, or if they've made a loss, in order for them to make any money in their current role, they have to recoup that loss and then turn a profit, right? Whereas all of a sudden in the last couple of years, what's become more mainstream is the loyalty is gone, right? I think the term mercenary, I might have read in an article, but the loyalty is kind of out the window, and the trader has more power because they can go to a new firm that's willing to pay them, again, that $50 million, $80 million package, and start from scratch, right? Start from zero rather than starting in the negative. So that has also driven up the general price, right? If you think about supply and demand, just an economics 101, the candidates having power has created a leverage for them that's given them a lot more opportunity to maximize their own value in this market.
Yeah, we're gonna wait for the
I
down.
want to go now.
25 shares.
What I want to explore now, what the hedge funds look for from you specifically, because you were telling me you place a lot of more junior tech quants, analysts within these pods, and you told me that they look for people who are exceptional, and I think that's kind of a given. But I want to, let's say, take the quant example, right? What specific skills or traits do they typically screen for? When they're looking for these high performers to build up pods and get funneled into pods.
Yeah. I think to refer to something that I mentioned a little earlier, risk taking and risk appetite and risk exposure is really important to a lot of, I guess we can, say, if we think about the big four hedge funds that you just mentioned, right? The traditional multi-strat. Risk exposure is really important. Because
Damn, this is a trader, right?
Hands-on risk exposure, right? These funds are looking for individuals. Let's say they're coming from a top bank, right? It's well known that JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs are feeders into Millennium and Citadel, and the other two as well, obviously. So, if you think about that, the funds aren't looking for somebody who is on a team that makes suggestions. They want the individuals, again, this is kind of how they separate good from great, or great from the best, right? They're looking for the individuals who have systematically calculated and have the communication skills and the confidence to walk straight up to the decision maker, right, that pod owner or the trader themselves, and say, this is the conclusion that I've come to, this is why, and this is the amount of risk I think you can take on this trade. Right? Not just again, to reiterate, not just the person who's on the team that might, be at the table. They want the decision maker on risk assessment and risk value, for example, right? And that applies to a couple of different skill sets, right? That applies to your risk professionals. It applies to your quant professionals, right? To keep this relevant to the host and what he's studying. Those who are comfortable owning and taking risk and communicating their own risk if they're not the actual risk taker themselves. That's a big one. And I think something else, as I mentioned, is where do they also stand in the cycle of utilization of the techie tools, right? Are they the ones who are using these cutting edge technologies, or are they the ones who are the decision makers with these cutting edge technologies, especially if they're coming from tech, right? We see a lot of talent out of Meta still, out of Microsoft still, which is interesting, right? Kind of non-traditional finance into finance, but it's okay because the technology still applies and the impact that they can make is significant, right? So those individuals who are at the forefront of the development of those programs, the development of those languages, and especially in an AI-based world, that's what these funds are looking for. Those people who set themselves apart in that way.
So you mentioned two things. You mentioned propensity to take risks, or actual decision makers, and then people who are at the forefront of deploying technology, right? So those two things.
Working among many others.
Among many.
But for now,
Of course. And so, when you're evaluating candidates, how do you, working in recruitment, screen for those? Like, how do you actually screen for those? I guess not being fully technical.
Yeah, that's a great question, and happy to peel back the curtain a little bit here. I think for us, first and foremost, if you think about what our titles are, I'm referring to the consultants and I just buried the lead there. I just gave away the answer. If you refer to what the people that work at our company, our recruiters are called, they're called consultants, right? So what I mean by that is, it is incumbent upon them to really fundamentally and intrinsically understand our clients. So how do we vet for that? Anybody can look good on paper. Anybody can AI produce a resume. Anybody can inflate their resume. Anybody can tell a story that maybe is a little bit fabricated, if you will, right? But for us, the best way we go about that is really
Mike Ben is doing the real work.
According to what the former head of the Drug Enforcement Administration told Mike
Guy's
Wallace,
cooking.
this drug shipment got here courtesy of what he calls drug trafficking by the CIA in partnership with the Venezuelan National Guard.
Did you guys hear that? This was the head of the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, saying that this is pre-Maduro, 1990s, in Venezuela. The CIA was directly trafficking cocaine, according to the Drug Enforcement Agency of the United States.
By the CIA in the 90s. Absolutely. This is not, we've known this for quite some time.
According to what the former head of the Drug Enforcement Administration told Mike Wallace,
That's the DEA. That's the United States Drug Enforcement Agency. The head of the DEA said the CIA ran the Colombian-Venezuelan drug trade. Let me see if I can find this. The CIA-Venezuela cocaine connection. This is from 1993. Now remember, we still had control over the Venezuelan government at this time. Hugo Chavez did not rise to power until 1998. So this is a friendly government. It's the same relationship that we've had with the Colombians, who've been a friendly government. That's why so much CIA Colombia stuff. CIA cocaine Colombia stuff. This is in 1993. This is on 60 Minutes. Can you imagine 60 Minutes doing this today? 60 Minutes on the CIA running cocaine through a puppet government in Venezuela?
a ton of cocaine, pure cocaine worth hundreds of millions, is smuggled into the United States. Sound familiar? Not the way this ton of cocaine got here. According to what the former head of the Drug Enforcement Administration told Mike Wallace, this drug shipment got here courtesy of what he calls drug trafficking by the CIA in partnership with the Venezuelan National Guard. While rumors of CIA involvement in drug trafficking have circulated for years, no one in the U.S. government has ever before publicly charged the CIA with this kind of wrongdoing. And it's not the kind of accusation anyone in government would make without thinking long and hard.
Now, we understand what you say. A ton of cocaine is smuggled into the United States of America by the Venezuelan National Guard? Well, in cooperation with the CIA?
That's exactly what appears to have happened.
Until last month, Judge Robert Bonner was the head of the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA. And Judge Bonner explained to us that only the head of the DEA is authorized to approve the transportation of any illegal narcotics like cocaine into this country.
Only the head of the DEA is able to approve the shipment of illegal narcotics into the country. Why would you ever approve the shipment of illegal narcotics into our country? Why would that even be a power you could have? Oh, because if it's like an Iran-Contra, necessary to sell those drugs to fund one of our proxy wars. Well then, yeah, we can get our own streets of Miami and Tampa and Chicago and New York City and LA hooked on cocaine. In fact, it's a matter of national security that we get our own citizens hooked on fentanyl and methamphetamines and cocaine.
It's terrible.
What? You shut down USAID, how else are we supposed to get money to fund the Nicaraguan Contras and Juan Guaido in Venezuela? So this was the head of all narcotics enforcement in the United States. The single person authorized to approve CIA drug trafficking operations to sell Colombian, Venezuelan cocaine in the streets of American cities. He quits his job and 1 month later, tells 60 Minutes, yeah, I approved CIA cocaine shipments.
It's like the French Connection.
Even if the CIA is
It's terrible.
Let me put it this way, Mike. If this has not been approved by DEA or an appropriate law enforcement authority in the United States, then it's illegal. It's called drug trafficking. It's called drug smuggling.
So what you're saying, in fact, is the CIA broke the law. Simple as that.
I don't think there's any other way you can rationalize around it, assuming, as I think we can, that there was some knowledge on the part of CIA, at least some participation in approving or condoning this to be done.
Judge Bonner says he came to that conclusion after a 2-year secret investigation conducted by the DEA's Office of Professional Responsibility in cooperation with the...
That's the same Office of Professional Responsibility within DOJ.
Man, why is it always somebody?
Inspector General. And what reason did the CIA have?
I got no returns.
The only rationale that's ever been offered is that this would lead to some valuable drug intelligence about the Colombian cartel.
Over half
Is that the website? You can't buy it off their website.
with Venezuela on its way to the United States and Europe. Back in the 1980s, the CIA was mandated by then President Reagan to develop intelligence on the Colombian drug cartels. And so the CIA, with Venezuela's Guardia Nacional, or National Guard, set up an undercover operation, a drug smuggling operation in Venezuela that could handle the transshipment of the Colombian cartel's cocaine on its way to market.
Add another donor drafter class segment here. They want to overthrow Venezuela so that they can set up more drug smuggling operations. Oh.
The plan was to infiltrate the cartel, and it worked. Well, the CIA National Guard undercover operation quickly accumulated this cocaine, over 1.5 tons, that was smuggled from Colombia into Venezuela inside these trucks, and then was stored here at the CIA-financed Counter-Narcotics Intelligence Center in Caracas.
God! This is why USAID, did you understand? Today this has been done by USAID. USAID in Afghanistan, USAID in Peru, USAID in Bolivia, USAID in Colombia. They control the shipping and logistics. And then they keep it going, and then you wonder why the U.S. Institute of Peace is telling the Afghan Taliban, while paying them, not to shut down the drug trade.
Yeah, the issue is they got a bunch of we got a lot of
I tried to work together with them.
huge accumulated deficit.
Telling me everything they were doing.
It's like, I don't understand how some of these companies,
agent in charge in Caracas. And she says that the CIA station chief, James Campbell,
you're never going to earn enough money to pay off the
the
debt.
CIA officer in charge at the center, told her that to keep the undercover smuggling
So many
operation
shares
they
outstanding.
had to keep the cartel happy. And the way to do that was simple. Deliver their dope, untouched by U.S. law enforcement, to the cartel's distributor. Their dope
I'd
dealers.
have to read, what did Cody take all of the debt for?
Understand, the cocaine trade was how we financed the Nicaraguan Contras in the 1980s. Simultaneously, we set up a CIA drug smuggling operation in Colombia and Venezuela. And then the official story is, well, we had
2020, they paid Kylie $600 million. Kylie Cosmetics?
for Colombian drug
Holy
cartels.
shit.
How else would they trust us to get more information about them? We had to smuggle tons of cocaine, hundreds of millions
In
of
cash.
cocaine.
They took out debt for that.
How would they trust us? What do you mean if you're moving their cocaine, you already have the network of people to sick Interpol against? If you are already in the logistical position to transport and sell onto retail markets in Miami and Chicago, their cocaine...
See, they do dumb shit like this. Respectfully, I mean, you already took out a bunch of debt in 2016.
You do not need to continue running a multi-decade drug trafficking...
They definitely, in a factor in shareholder lawsuits, were paid. For sure.
To finance it. The reason is to finance operations and probably pay off private contractors and probably take a little bit for themselves. Like you came over JFK.
Wait, in fact, the user proceeds from subsequent asset sales such as stake in Kim Kardashian's brand in 2025. Yeah, look at this. This is without... what are these companies doing?
This is why Trump is the first person to declare these drug cartels a terrorist group.
I knew they had money, I wasn't entirely sure this was why.
Since the 1960s. George Bush was in on this. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were in on this. George H.W. Bush was in on this. Ronald Reagan was in on this. I presume Barack Obama was in on this, although those years are a little bit of a gap period in my knowledge set about the direct connections. I know that there are direct connections with everybody else. But Trump is the first one. Why? Because this is...
Man, if this is true, that's crazy. It's really fraud.
These people in Venezuela and Colombia trusted the CIA more than they trusted Trump. In Miami or Houston or wherever. This is how they're going to pay the mercenaries, by the way. When this came out, Juan Guaido's paramilitary folks...
Ford Further stated that the Kylie Cosmetics revenue numbers cited by Countless Media outlets.
...operatives to run this military coup get funded in a low GDP country. Get funded from cocaine proceeds. And that's another...
They just say that Ford was lying.
...overriding directive.
Which traditionally...
...sell these drugs on American streets.
Look, either... I mean, they clearly overpaid. $600 million is not worth it. Let's say she even does $1 billion a year in revenue. You're only going to net maybe 100 million. I doubt the margins are 10%. And I don't think she does $1 billion a year in revenue. It would just take forever to earn the money back.
So this is the head of the DEA and the top investigator at the DEA having personal one-on-one conversations with the CIA chief of station and the CIA case officer doing this. And the CIA says, yeah, go fuck yourself. We're going to traffic cocaine.
In the United States, right?
As they explained to me, that this would enable them to gain the traffickers' confidence, keep their informant cool, and it would resolve the
People have been going at this.
Total bullshit. They're moving huge quantities. They're moving hundreds of millions of dollars in. It was to keep the network happy. So
That's the other thing too. It's not like she's making this makeup. They're just putting their name on it and sourcing it from somewhere. Yeah, no shit. Where'd that go?
To put their thumb on the scale of domestic political elections, so that our donor drafter class buddies can win the local elections.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Cody definitely overpaid, and they're definitely lying. 600 million for some makeup? Are you out of your mind? What is... This is a $4 billion company to begin with, so you're pretty much, yeah, no. The whole Elf Beauty company is $4 billion. Yeah, they fucking, oh my god. That's painful. I can't,
CIA headquarters.
And his bosses, that's the CIA in Washington, went over Annabelle Grimshead directly to her bosses at DEA headquarters in Washington.
They made this proposal, and we said, no way, we will not permit this, it should not go forward.
And the CIA made a direct proposal. CIA headquarters makes a direct proposal to the head of the DEA. Says, please, come on. You gotta approve these cocaine shipments. We're shipping in tons, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cocaine. Can you please?
It's crazy.
The DEA says no, so they're like, well, fuck you, we're a covert spy agency. Our job is doing illegal shit secretly and getting away with it. Fuck you, Mom and Dad. Fuck you, government oversight. We're gonna run the cocaine anyway.
DEA CIA investigation we mentioned earlier confirmed that over a ton of cocaine made its way from the counter-narcotic center in
It was $600 million cash. That is insane. They really gave her $600 million.
USAID counter-narcotics programs. I went over this. How many times have I been over this with you guys?
When was this? 2020?
I'll just go, I think from Google. USAID, Peru, Bolivia, cocaine,
broken down into 4 parts. Yeah. Can't play with it about this. Figure it out. Dance, Diller. You guys all got ripped off.
And what do they tell the AP? In Peru, which is where the coca leaves are grown. Peru is where the coca leaves that move through.
Looking for the cash flow.
It is the #1 site.
Oh my gosh. It's even crazy that they call it an investment.
$135 million in 2022. Part of that is to control cocaine production. You have to take back the early 1980s, exactly when the CIA was tracking all that cocaine. back to Colombia. In a statement, they said that they're going to
Good old private, I have to say yes.
Former counter-narcotics chief of Peru said that the USA pause is not going to
I don't even know why I'm doing this. I know the answer.
assistance with politics involved is minimal, often delayed, and not integrated with the actions of the Peruvian state, meaning they're running their own independent operation. Calderon, the head of the counter-narcotics division in Peru, said that Bolivia and Bolivia, which expelled U.S. aid in 2013, has achieved better results in controlling cocaine production since then. So in Peru, the number 2 producer of all cocaine, when U.S. aid was shut down, they said actually it's a good thing.
It's so crazy, dude. Look, that's where it is, right there. They really gave her $6 million 600 times. Well, did their revenue go up at all after that? What was their revenue this year? Get them like that. They're gonna say COVID dropped it, right? Magically, COVID dropped it. How did they have? They had 600 million cash, and they chose. That's how they didn't even have 600 million cash. This is crazy. I'm not gonna buy more than I did. I can't trust this company with any sort of anything. Their revenue didn't even go up. Sick. They spent $600 million. What did they sell in 2020? Probably have to go to the comments on the financial statements.
Industry goes away when the CIA and USA go away in the country. At least it goes down dramatically.
And they discovered that at one point, General Dien's National Guard tried to ship 1,500 kilos at once.
They were not successful in that.
1,500 kilos! If a single kilo was worth $200 million, they said a couple $100 million.
And to be honest, that's why they valued it at $1 billion. They only bought it for 51%. So they're saying 50%? Oh my gosh, that's how they pulled that one. That's crazy. Respectfully, too. I clearly don't know them, but it's not worth $600 million. You know how much you can get done with $600 million? You know how much you have to generate to get $600 million? Unless you get a sweetheart deal like this. Get him, Mike. Get him. I gotta rewind this. You can go with it. $600 million. Who negotiated that? What did she suck off this Peter guy? Get all respect for this. Like, I don't know how this happened. Yeah, he's the former CEO, bro. Made the worst deal ever. Jab's pissed. Alright, he's the fish founder. I think she sucked him off. I'm gonna be honest. She gave him a little.
in Venezuela. This makes me wonder, as I listen to this, about the drug situation in Brazil.
I don't know how true this is either. I think it's all smoke and mirrors with them.
Said that it'd be better for his business if Lula won the 2022 election. Lloyd Austin, not only did Bill Burns, the CIA director, go to Brazil to threaten Bolsonaro ahead of the election. Ahead of the election, Brazil's military seeks to assure.
My God. And how we got here is you Google why they got their debt. Where'd that Google go? Why does Cote, is that even how you pronounce it? Cote? This is one of the things that comes up. Procter & Gamble. Oh, now it's not going to. Well, it came up the first time I Googled it. The tab's still got to be up somewhere.
I want to know about the U.S. military connections to drug trafficking in Brazil, and whether that was part of the math of the coup in Brazil in 2022, carried out by USAID.
I don't know, whatever, but it was something with Procter & Gamble in 2016, and then it said that they bought this for $600 million.
General Deanne and his officers didn't go to the bathroom without telling Michael Brown.
They also bought Kim Kardashian's beauty business. Oh my God.
So the Congress is shipping 1,500 tons of cocaine into the country. Couldn't go to the bathroom without the CIA telling them, giving them permission.
What the
The CIA was directly funding the counter-narcotics warehouse where they stored the drugs to traffic the drugs out.
They gave that $1 billion valuation too. No shit. And then they sold it back in March of last year. Oh my God.
Miami's international airport and was seized coincidentally by U.S. Customs. Customs traced those drugs back to the Venezuelan National Guard. But General Deanne told us that operation had been approved by U.S. authorities.
This is crazy. They closed. Look at this. So they just sold them. That is so crazy. And then they'll just be like, oh, didn't work. On to the next one.
There is a problem between the CIA and the DEA, and perhaps they are trying to find the fall guy who is General Deanne. If I had anything to do with illegal drug trafficking, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
General Deanne is right about one thing. He could travel to New York and talk to us about drug policy only because he had already been
Scam care.
prosecution in that DEA general's investigation.
Here we go. That's a bold claim. I don't know anything about that. I'm just learning about this, to be honest, because I saw what the shares were at, so then I started to do the diligence if it's a good company or not. They got, I don't know. They got some people who will play some dirty ball. I'll have to see the board of directors too. They're all vipers. All I see is vipers.
Well, you'll never get him to squeal now. You can't be prosecuted for transporting drugs in the United States because you got approval from the CIA and immunity from the Justice Department.
Illegal. It's called drug trafficking. It's called drug smuggling.
Where'd that go? I'm gonna read that again. That's amazing.
Simple as that. I don't think there's any other way you can rationalize around it. Assuming, as I think we can, that there was some knowledge on the part of the CIA, at least some participation in approving or condoning this to be done.
And what they're going to say here is, well, it wasn't breaking the law. These were quote, authorized crimes in furtherance of U.S.
I mean, the jet needs fuel.
That's what they're going to say. No one will go to jail because these are
Now they're gonna buy that back too. That's crazy.
authorized crimes.
Yep, the jet needs gas. The mansions have tax. The jet needs gas, and the mansions got tax.
2,800 authorized crimes.
That's just facts.
Between 2011 and 2013.
And there's some big stacks. 600 million. I can't get over that.
Watch the rest of this.
I don't know what, because they're not even just buying it with their name on it. Why don't you just give them 50 million to license their name and put it on some makeup? Because it's not their makeup anyway. I don't even know how the makeup industry works, and I know that it's not their makeup. Look, Seed Beauty. What is this? Look, so you could go to this company.
CIA investigates itself and finds.
Yeah. Oh God. There's gonna be a strike. And then the revenues didn't go up at all.
Leopoldo Lopez, as the Gray Zone is reporting, is posing with narco leaders, is flying to Colombia-Venezuela border on a plane registered with a Florida-based company that had sold to Colombia and was busted for hundreds of kilos of cocaine. In this network, this Leopoldo Lopez network,
Alright, so pretty much.
That we've had for 4 or 5 decades, while these very figures, Guaido and Lopez, are working actively with the CIA in the operation. This side and this side. That's why these are authorized crimes. That is why no one at CIA will go to jail for trafficking cocaine to satisfy all the sheep being herded by global governments. All the stakeholders in the coup operation. This is 4 minutes left in this.
However, the CIA did acknowledge to us that the investigation, quote, did reveal instances of poor judgment and management, leading to disciplinary actions for several CIA officers.
Poor judgment and management. Yeah, we disciplined ourselves over trafficking hundreds of kilos of cocaine into our country. What was the poor judgment? That you did it so sloppily that you got caught? That you directly financed the warehouse that you trafficked these out of? That you didn't use enough NGOs or cutouts or shell companies that you could be busted by your own DEA? That you were dumb enough to fly into Miami International Airport instead of using a Haitian shrinking company or a scuba diving instructor in the Bahamas, or a speedboat company in the Bahamas.
Mark McFarland, the CIA officer in charge of the Counter-Narcotics Center, resigned from the agency last year.
This company's
We
screwed.
talked to him, but he told us the CIA was not legalized against him, but he violated his secrecy agreement.
Nobody's going to lend them more money, so they're going to have to continue to sell shares. And they already have so many shares outstanding that if they do that, they'll never earn anything per share. It's like, I don't see how this lasts.
He's not allowed to talk about his cocaine operation because the CIA will get him prosecuted. He talks about his role in trafficking cocaine in writing, authorized by the agency.
I'm surprised they don't have anything about a going concern there.
But can't tell the American public about it because national security secrets. You're not allowed to know why you have a cocaine epidemic, and today a fentanyl epidemic in your city. National security.
They don't even have working capital. So as soon as a portion of debt goes through,
These were the people controlling Trump foreign policy in 2001. You think Elliot Abrams didn't know this shit? Elliot Abrams ran Iran-Contra, the drug trafficking operation for the Nicaraguan rebels in the 1980s. Went to jail over it. You think he didn't know about these drug networks tied to Juan Guaido in Colombia and Venezuela, or to Leopoldo Lopez, the drug networks tied to them in the late 2010s? Of course. They wanted to keep it going. If Trump tried to shut it down, they would side with the Democrats over Russiagate, they would side with the Democrats over impeachment, and then, oops, there goes your democratically elected president.
To James Campbell, the CIA station chief, we learned he was brought back to the U.S. and promoted, but then he retired.
The CIA station chief in charge of the whole operation was job well done.
I don't see how they're able to do this.
Our country sold them to build up a paramilitary narco network to control local elections and you conduct military coups at the CIA's behest because they're all getting fucking paid through drug money. Job well done.
There we go.
Not prosecuted, promoted.
Let's get it right, too.
It was like John Brennan promoting his way up crime by crime, authorized crime by authorized crime. Every single one he should be prosecuted, but instead he's promoted.
Campbell did tell us, quote, I've devoted my life to my country and feel like a victim in this thing.
It's exactly what they always say. This is like when Hunter Biden, they run this back.
I've devoted my life to my country.
This is what Hunter Biden said when he was busted with Burisma. And how do they build Burisma? To the State Department when they were lobbying for favors to the U.S. Embassy in Rome and the U.S. Embassy in Kiev. They said Burisma is not just an ordinary private gas company.
Zero.
Oh,
so much money.
Advancing U.S. national security and U.S. national interests by building up Ukraine's endogenous gas industry and weaning Europe off of Russian gas. So I'm a patriot. This is what Hunter Biden said when he was busted for all the Burisma corruption. He said
to 17.9. Here we go.
I was advancing U.S. national security by helping to undermine Russian influence. And who was on the board right next to Hunter Biden at Burisma? Cofer Black, who spent 30 years in the CIA and was Mitt Romney's Sherpa to the Central Intelligence Agency during his run for the presidency in 2012. Bipartisan.
So pretty much saying they're going to sell things and refinance it, which I don't even know what they can continue to sell.
You know that language, which is the limited
You don't have any assets. Goodwill's nothing. Other intangible is probably a lie. Equity investments. I'm gonna have to get rid of all those.
Established in 1954 to undertake cultural education activities on behalf of the United States government, but it's not open to official U.S. agencies. It's been very effective, but in the wake of recent critical press comment on CIA involvement with American universities, we feel public allegation that CIA funds and controls the Asia Foundation will be seized upon.
What is this umbrella?
Even though they acknowledge that it's a fucking CIA proprietary. And that would cause embarrassment. And so, remember what they said right after this in the following document. And so what they said is they worked with them in anticipation of the Asia Foundation's disassociation from the CIA. The Board of Trustees in 1967 released to the American Foreign Press a carefully limited statement of admission of past CIA support. A carefully limited statement. So even though they were created by the CIA, directly funded and managed by the CIA, when they got caught, the CIA literally worked with the entire Board of Trustees on a carefully limited statement. And that's what this is. Right here. This is your carefully limited statement. Oh yes, it happened. Our CIA-financed groups did traffic 1,500 kilograms of cocaine out of our CIA-financed warehouse, but you can't prove there's a written document saying we authorized them to do it, so they admit to a limited...
So did that in December of 2025. So we're going to see that in this next...
Oh yeah, and by the way, every CIA officer involved in the operation can't talk to the press to prove them wrong.
I don't like it. It's going to take a while. And then honestly, if you can get what we fairly died for this, just makes no sense.
So for example, the CIA case officer who retired over this gave the statement...
Still saying that's worth, what, $2 million?
The CIA...
It's only because of how many shares have out there. Yeah, it's just not worth that. It should be like $1 a share.
Seeking to delimit the effects of anticipated
Really?
exposure. The CIA case officer in charge of operations can't run to the press and say, oh yeah, of course we
Jab is holding this up,
told by the station chief to
by
do
the
it,
way.
because then he gets arrested.
Yeah, if they didn't have Chad, they'd be up under. This company will keep it elevated. That should be a complete write-off. I can't believe this. They put a whole presentation slide together. They think this is...
dangerous in this area.
This is the part that...
They
think that followers drive sales. It's just not true.
He's only talking after he just retired the month before.
It is wrong for an agency of the U.S. government to facilitate and participate in allowing drugs to reach the streets. And apparently, if the CIA doesn't understand that, then I would be concerned that this kind of incident could be repeated.
Still talking about followers. 7th in and they're still talking about followers. Like, who gives a shit? This didn't happen, eh? I like this place. This is upsetting. Those are pretty sweet.
What do you think they're doing in Peru? What do you think they're doing in Bolivia? What do you think they're doing in Colombia and Venezuela? What do you think they're doing in Afghanistan? What do you think they're doing in Syria? How do you think we fund a mercenary army in Syria to topple Bashar al-Assad? Or do you think
I don't think that it was worth any of
the
this.
entire world heroin
Clearly. I've got the blessing of hindsight right now. I didn't, if I would have seen this when it came out.
Mercenary paramilitary groups, our own U.S. government agencies are saying keep the drugs flowing to the U.S. CPs. Question: the drugs got it. I don't doubt that the drugs got in here. Do you think that maybe the agency is doing something?
294.
You hope when these mistakes are made that not too many more of them are, particularly when the mistake is a large quantity of substance like this that can kill people, and probably did.
We asked the senator why no one in the CIA has been prosecuted for bringing in the drug.
You would seem to think there would be a good case there. Case against an American who knew anything about it. But, I've been a prosecutor. Mike, and you have to look at the case, convince a jury or a judge not to throw the case out. The Justice Department reviewed that, and they decided not to prosecute these individuals from the agency. Of course, this is this whole CIA prosecution nexus that we've done half a dozen streams on. The CIA is going to work directly with DOJ on this. They're going to say it's going to reveal national security secrets, it's going to discredit the United States in the eyes of the international community, it's going to undermine all of our assets on the ground, our entire human intelligence network, it's going to be called as witnesses and exposed and murdered in their own countries or prosecuted in their own countries.
It's kind of sad, really. 600
Yeah. That's a limited hangout, buddy. That was a fucking lie. They were paying the
It's all goodwill.
on the ground. Just like around Juan Guaido and Leopoldo Lopez. How do you think they get all these men to be in position for a military coup? They're getting their cut of the drug money. The only other option is U.S. aid or Soros Foundation grants.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, I don't know of any because from what I know, no valuable intelligence of any kind was produced from this operation.
What intelligence was generated by the shipment of this
Charlie Room.
controlled or uncontrolled? It was very possible.
That's all they did for it. They took out a revolving loan.
Trafficking drugs into Venezuela are under arrest. There was another truck, and
A truck driver.
It's crazy,
This
man.
is what you call a fall guy. Yeah, the Uber driver that we ordered to ship the cocaine, we arrested our Uber driver. Yeah, after we successfully transported hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cocaine into the country, we arrested the Uber driver who delivered the drugs. You moved him into Miami. Who was the connect in Miami that went down over this? He's probably a CIA guy too. Or a CIA-backed Colombian, or a CIA-backed Mexican, or a CIA-backed Nicaraguan, or a CIA-backed Cuban. Justice Department, because, you arrest him, you're going to draw into the intelligence network. You're going to U.S. national security. Russia and China are going to take over Venezuela.
These people. Alright.
Are you a Russia lover? Is that why you want to prosecute?
It's not worth it. It'll probably drop.
Tens of thousands of counts of felony drug trafficking? Are you a Putin puppet?
And if it doesn't, the only reason it doesn't is because Jab holds it up somehow.
So what you're saying is you captured 3 or 4 or 5 truck drivers. I'm asking about
So last we spoke was just before New Year's Eve, and we were talking about the attack on Putin's residence. All like line in the kind of the rules of conduct around the world, in the world that we used to live in, pre-Trump, are being crossed on a monthly basis. So we're talking about the drone attack or alleged drone attack on Putin's residence, and a few days later, as me and you try to celebrate Christmas and New Year's, we have the leader of a country, the president of a country, in custody within hours. And first, Larry, I want to get your reaction when you first got the news. What was your initial?
I don't think that is worth it.
Do you think it was more than just
so much debt.
There was no reason to do this. And there are so many things that are about the kidnapping of Mitchell. I spent 22 years scripting exercises, military exercises, for Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. So Delta Force was the one that carried out this operation. And, they involved a unit called Task Force 160, the night flyers. And so they're specially trained.
Project Gravity. Everybody's got a project or an operation or. This is crazy.
If they're going to do it when they're planning a mission, if they have any flexibility, in other words, circumstances are not such that they have to do it.
And this is also code for they're just losing money. They have plenty of working capital. Oh, that's a lot of inventories, though. Oh, they have such a big notes payable. They're gonna say notes payable is sooner. Yeah, so you pay it short term.
A few of those were destroyed, but most of them were never active or deployed. I have since
Leave that up there. God, they've lost so much money too.
So that ensured that when the U.S. forces arrived, they were basically allowed in the front door, and no return fire. This is akin to
Cash was $5 million. It's not going to do anything, respectfully. The cash flow a little bit more than $5 million. This would have been the time, I guess, and I should have audited a stock. I was looking at it, and then I started doing some other stuff and missed this. Could really go down to 50 cents again, though. There's no stopping it at that point. How many shares they got outstanding if it goes to 50 cents? What's it valued at? Is that like 60, 70 million? Yeah. Maybe this times 25. No, not divided. Yeah, it's 70 million essentially. It's still not worth anything because they don't earn money and they put an accumulated deficit and then they only cash flow $5 million. So I'm sure they're not even going to be worth that. That's just going to be generous because the next thing it's going to do is go to zero. And it's already 4 o'clock here. Festus ran nice. European Wax Center closed above 4. Got that one.
Good numbers. We don't have names and faces that I've seen. But this was carried out.
Go get a little bit and be back to stream.
And yet, it did not replace the government of Venezuela. It simply called off Maduro.
Yeah, that's another issue.
I'm just gonna keep working, actually.
The regime is still in power. But before doing so, we talked about senior military commanders that might have played a role in order of the countdown.
Senior official within the security, so I'll leave it broad in the security service. I mean, I know who it is, but I don't really want to say.
Of course. What about the rocket launcher that was that hit one of the choppers, the U.S. choppers, that left you with a few injuries? Do you think that was the lone actor, or does it not show that it was?
No, that'd be a lone actor. I'm sure there's somebody.
There were 4 customers that applied for 4717 for the company's trade accounts receivable.
It didn't bring down the helicopter. I've got to
What is that? It's like Home Depot? One of these Home Depot? I feel like one of them's Home Depot. Let's listen there. Let's pause this. Events. Let's listen to that.
Hello everyone, and welcome from Brian McNamara of Chemical Engineers Group. Brian, important and that have been saved. Brian, the line is open, please go ahead.
Hey guys, good afternoon. Thanks for taking the question. So I just wanted to drill in on your decision to kind of exit GTC and kind of redirect Trader.com traffic to retail partners' websites. Is that certain types of retailers, or just any clarity there would be helpful?
Yeah, Brian, thanks for the question. I'd say a couple of things. First of all, well, in many consumer businesses, the direct channel is the margin monster. That's not the case in our business, just due to the supply chain, the size and weight of shipments and dropping them on. It's the last mile that's expensive. In fact, it's the last mile that's also that also sub-optimizes the consumer experience. And so, as we looked at both the economics, the bandwidth and cost needed to drive that channel, from technology infrastructure through advertising to acquire customers. And then we looked at the end consumer experience. It was clear to us that this was not the right channel for us to be driving. And so, as we think about what that would look like, I would say, first of all, we're working with retail partners so that we can offer choice to our end consumers. We're being thoughtful to the consumer experience that they can provide. First of all, ensuring that we can connect into inventory levels. Send a transaction to a retailer that they can quickly service and that they can service in a high quality way. We'll look at capabilities like assembly and delivery, which is clearly a better experience than the last mile outsourced truck or van sort of dropping off a grill box in someone's back porch. We think we can partner with retailers that improve this experience. And so we're in the process of defining exactly who that would be. And we've got technology selected, and we're confident that this will be an opportunity to continue to drive revenues, but at higher margins and at better experience for the consumer. We're certainly going to be attentive to ensuring that we drive as much of that revenue there as we can. We want to make sure that there's minimal breakage in the process, but long term we really believe in this approach.
Great, that's helpful. And then just on, your retail partners' attitudes towards inventories in the current market. We've heard from other players, obviously smaller price points, that, several large retailers kind of are being, tight on inventory, shifting their business from direct import to domestic fulfillment. I'm just curious, what are you guys seeing, obviously, given a much higher price point?
Well, I would say there have been some meaningful shifts over the last couple of quarters. As the tariff landscape shifted, it didn't make sense for a period of time for retailers to direct import the inventory, largely because the tariff exposure was so much higher on the wholesale cost than on our cost of goods. And so a lot of our partners did shift towards a domestic fulfillment model. Fortunately, we've worked very closely with them to implement a first sale process, which is an efficient way to direct import without driving higher aggregate tariff costs. And so that's actually one of the things that drove some of the shift into the third quarter. We were fulfilling domestically. So
there was a time I would try to only go on the internet websites that I was affiliated with. Just kind of let it go because could explore more, but all of these websites are owned by someone or entity or corporation or whatever. So
we're not really seeing that change. We're not seeing any change to the allocation of space at retail, to the assortments, and we're not seeing a different strategy
Watch
for
more Shark Tank later.
inventory than we were seeing pre-tariffs.
Great, and then finally, I'm just curious, it seems like that sub $1,000 price point grill continues to outperform by 3 years running now. Just curious your thoughts on how that maybe changes or affects your overall pricing strategy. Clearly you have a premium status, but does that change, how you think about things? You launched a relatively off-market grill earlier this year. Just curious your thoughts there.
So, we talk a lot about pricing strategy vis-a-vis our brand position, and we continue to believe that Traeger is well positioned in terms of the product experience, the brand, the perception of the brand to be an accessible premium brand. And we believe that will continue, and it'll continue in part by how we position it, but also in part by how we think about our product roadmap strategically. What we learned as in our consumer research and in our pricing studies is that the lower price point is getting to a sharper opening price point, expanded the addressable audience for Traeger. I think it does a couple of things. Number one, it inspires a consumer who is spending closer to the average of a grill in the U.S., which is it's around $325 at retail. We're able to migrate them north. A consumer who is probably buying a propane grill before, but has been looking at Traeger, is willing to step up a little bit. So we clearly are reaching a new consumer. But I would also say that when we've reached that consumer and they come into the Traeger community, they start to appreciate the benefits and just the experience of cooking on a Traeger grill, a wood pellet grill. We believe that they stay. They stay not only to cook with the wood pellets, the accessories, the lifetime value of that consumer is meaningful. But I would say equally importantly, they tend to upgrade as later on their second purchase as they become committed to the brand and the solution. So we see it as a strategic opportunity to enhance the size of the market. We don't think it constrains our ability to position the brand or to grow. I do think there's, one of the things that is clearly happening, not only expanding the audience of relevant consumers, but this is a consumer environment for high-ticket discretionary durable products. And I think in light of that, high interest rates, we've seen the consumer shift to lower price points. We think that is a temporary phenomenon, and we continue to position to drive higher ASPs going forward. But we like the strategy of getting the from an opening price point because we do think it brings in an incremental consumer.
Thanks very much for the call. I'll pass it on.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Peter Benedict of Baird. Peter, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Oh, hey guys, good evening. Thanks for taking the questions. First,
Gotta do this for my US.
frame this
Been playing that golf.
you're expecting to occur
Clearly.
from the phase 2 distribution strategy plans. They make sense. Just kind of curious if you frame the size of that for us, maybe the timing on when that might, you should expect that to play out. That's my first question.
Yeah, hey, thanks for the call, Peter. I'll take that question. So overall, we're essentially walking away from approximately $60 million of revenue, but we do believe there's going to be a recapture of that revenue in either the channels that they're in, i.e. Costco inline, or the other channels that we operate in. With that said, the timing of we're making these shifts in January and into February, and then the recapture and the value of this is going to be sequentially within the first half of FY26 into the first half of 26 into the second half, and then long term into 27. These are this is a structural shift in nature, and we just don't want to overcommit for next year. At the same time, this is absolutely a value capture of $20 million.
Let me just add to that, if I may. It was, as we step back and think about what are we trying to get done right now, we're seeing an opportunity that I would say was originally driven by tariffs and a need to cut costs so that we could preserve profitability and financial health in the moment. But as we sort of moved into the late second quarter, early third quarter, we were very committed to doing this because we see a long-term benefit for the business.
Plus, too.
This Project Gravity
If I win this queen,
a transformation exercise, which early innings will drive profit, it'll drive cash flow, it will delever our balance sheet. But ultimately what it does is it streamlines the business and it opens up investment capacity so that we can reinvest back in growth. And so to the extent that revenues decline in the near term,
I should have seen that coming. I had to do my
we're going to be driving higher profitability, and we're going to be creating capacity to make sure that what the consumer cares about, which is a better product experience, it's a better interaction with the brand, the recipe content, all of the content that improves that experience, that we can fund these things, and that we can fund the experience at retail that a consumer has when they walk in there. It's been an interesting, maybe challenging is a better word. It's been a challenging few years coming out of the pandemic. And as we've gone through these budget cycles and feel like we don't have the investment capacity to adequately fund what we believe is really important to consumer, we really saw this as an opportunity to shift, to completely reshape the P&L and to shift how we go after, to shift structurally so that we can really do the right thing for the brand long term. So we're actually really excited about the process that we're going through. There will be some decline in revenue, as both Joey and I have said, but it will be really an enabler to medium to longer term growth.
Got it. No, that's helpful perspective. My second question is around maybe give us a sense of the margin profile of going to the distributing model in Europe, and how that compares maybe to what you would see on Wednesday. Just kind of curious what the margin was on the distributor side of things.
Yeah, so margins, when you shift to distributor model, there's obviously an impact to margin overall. And that's the third party we're going to work with has to drive a profit or deliver a profit as well. At the same time, if you look below margin, the cost structure that we're taking out of the business is going to make up for more than the margin loss. And so it's back to what Jeremy said, in being smaller but more profitable. This is a perfect example. And then we believe we can serve the consumer in Europe in the same way that we were serving them in the direct model, but just in a much more profitable way.
Got it. Makes sense. Last one is just, can you maybe expand on the elasticity response you've seen? Obviously, price up, you saw units come down. Certainly that was expected. But just, I'm curious how that maybe informs your promotional plan for the fourth quarter and into next spring. It's just kind of an open-ended question there. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a prudent question. So as far as elasticity and pricing, we took pricing in the low double digits. Generally speaking, we're very happy with the way sell-through's tracking. There is a divergence of above 1,000 and below 1,000 in terms of performance. Speaking about promo overall, though, the consumer reacts when we promo, and it's something that we use to think about our inventory management, profitability, in-year quarter-to-quarter management. And so we're continue to be committed to promo. Keep in mind as well,